Well, hello everyone, my name is Zachary O'Shea, and this is Box of Teeth. When you're crafting a big bad for a horror-based role-playing campaign, it's always really important to make sure that they exemplify the horror subgenres that you want to use, because they are the figurehead of that campaign. So let's go ahead and go over an example of that right now with the antagonists that I'm highlighting this month. First off, yes, we do have a special guest here, which is my feline buddy. Hello. Who is Panda. We'll see how long he sticks around while I'm talking. Right now he's just sleeping off a rainy day. And so a quick reminder, we're covering the Lodgemaster this month, who is a demon dedicated to corrupting nobility and other institutions of power, so they abuse those beneath them in a savage sort of fashion. In the mortal world, he takes on the guise of an aged gentleman who knows all about hunting and loving and being the perfect man, and takes in proteges to mirror his values, which in the end up being twisted and awful. There are four main horror subgenres that he represents, the first of which is body horror, in that he is basically the Wolfman in a different guise. So he's about transformation, going from a handsome older man into a horrible red furred demon with a skull head, and then similarly those that are under his control slowly become more and more bestial until they are barely human anymore. He brings out the unnatural and the savage in others, and that can definitely have some body horror elements to them. Second off is demonic horror, in that he has a corrupting influence that is very hard to resist. Even heroes can fall under his sway for a few moments and commit atrocities. So it's that kind of idea of you can't really even control yourself because the forces of hell are so powerful. His main focus, though, is corruption horror in a representation of toxic masculinity. Now, I'm not going to go on a long tirade here. I know this is the internet and we can argue about that. But he's taking those aspects that are noble in men and turning it up to a destructive degree in a way that is harmful to society as opposed to beneficial to society. And that's kind of his main theme, along with power corrupts. And that kind of melds into the final category, which is class horror. And in this, he is directly dealing with nobles and rich merchant families and the like, and taking their sons and making sure that they literally turn into monsters who are going to abuse the people around them and beneath them, as well as break down the system that actually works for their own edification. Now that I've considered the horror genres that I want to work with, then I go through my usual Noctis method to actually create him. And again, that's name, origin, comparison, traits, inform, and sew up. Name-wise, there are a bunch of different options I could have gone with that have a definitive, more wolf-like feel to them, but I didn't quite want to do that, so I did settle on the Lodgemaster, because he controls hunting lodges. He's the master of them, and that kind of gives him a certain aura and feel just by his name. Now, when it comes to the actual origin, I wanted to have a Wolfman sort of feel, but let's go ahead and twist that a little bit, making it into a demon. Again, part of his inspiration was the Anthony Hopkins character from the most recent version of the Wolfman, which I really enjoyed. As we're going with the demonic creature, I want to make sure that it lines up with other fiends that are out there already in Dungeons & Dragons, and the sort of damage immunities and condition immunities he has, any sort of resistances he might have, the skills and saving throw bonuses that he has, and that sort of thing. That kind of leads directly into comparison, so I looked at demons and monsters that are in his challenge rating to determine how much damage should he really be doing, what's his hit point should be like, what his armor class should be like, and again, what kind of level of threat he would be as a fiendish monster of his challenge rating, which is pretty serious compared to other monsters of the same challenge rating with the way that they're often designed. So we already have some of the demonic horror in there, and we'll add a little bit more later. And we have some of the class horror with the Lodgemaster title. And now we have to go into the traits, which is the real meat of building the character. So I looked at other wolves, werewolves, beasts, etc. to kind of decide what sort of abilities he's going to have. So we settled on Pounce, Pack Tactics, Rampage, Unnatural Leap, and Keen Hearing, which is just kind of the bevy of what you would expect a werewolf to possibly have at the extreme in that sort of avenue. So that, again, gives us kind of that body horror feeling, because he has shape changer either into a wolf, a human, or back into his demonic form. So he pops his claws, he develops fur, all the flesh melts off of his face, leaving a dire wolf skull behind, and he's ready to rock and roll. And boy, does he rock and roll. With all that little bit done, then we move into Inform, and this is where we kind of go back to demonic horror and a little bit of corruption horror. On that, he has his howl that he can do that can drive people mad with bloodlust, so they attack whoever is near them, including heroes that might be trying to stop him, or just even common people. And because of this, that kind of demonic force, losing yourself, evil, corrupting you utterly, comes into fore there in that sort of avenue. He also mostly fights in melee, which just tells you a little bit more about his character and how he views people should hunt, even though his minions don't necessarily follow that. Here's a spoiler, they really don't in that sort of regard. He also has an ability called Majesty because he has such a great force of personality, that kind of almost influencer in a dark and terrible way. When you think about it, that's encouraging young men who follow him to do terrible things, but it's a league beyond that. Because even when you're fighting him, it's really hard to overcome just how awesome this guy is and continue to attack him. Which shouldn't really make sense. You should hate him and be able to beat him up, but there's just something about him that is irresistible. Again, demonic and corruption horror kind of combined together there. The last step, as always, is sew up, which is just simple math. Make sure the hit point totals are correct, making sure all of his saving bonuses are correct, making sure the damage he does is correct. Just the little dotting I's and crossing T's you should always double check when you build a monster. All right, I hope that was useful, just kind of going through how to take the genres you want to use, taking that Noctis method, and building an antagonist out of that that's now going to inform the rest of the world you're going to build, primarily through monsters and encounters and plots that they have for your players to interact with and hopefully thwart. If you enjoyed the Lodgemaster and our talk so far, you can find him, his minions, and hundreds of other horror-themed monsters, all for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and all perfectly free, at boxofteeth.blogspot.com. If you're more interested in the horror fiction that I write that includes grease paint, I'm not going to show you the cover today, I've done it a lot recently, but it's got a killer clown and a lot of really fun genre themes in there that I think you'll enjoy, or the non-Dungeons & Dragons horror role-playing projects that I have, you can always go to www.zacharyoshay.com. Thank you for your time and your attention, and have a wonderful rest of the day.